How long has it been that you've been in the independent scene?
Started in college basically. I was playing for a year or so before, 97 to now, whatever that is. So I suck at the math, you can do the math.
Do you compare your songs with the other artists or the artists that you've heard before?
I mean, honestly, it takes so much just to get it to a place where it's like tolerable to you. It's just you can't be bothered with thinking about how does it compare to Eric Clapton. It's like you don't.
Hey guys, welcome to Art and Culture Tribe. I hope you guys are doing well. Today we have an amazing artist, a songwriter from the blues background who's also played in rock and roll, been part of Galich Guru and Bye to Blues. You want to know who that is? Let's check him out. So let's welcome Mr. Anant Menon. Hello.
How's it going, Dinkar? Nice
Very
to see
good.
you. Nice to see you again.
Thank you so much for coming for this show.
My pleasure.
So, how are you?
I'm okay, man. It's kind of a grind after so long you've been doing this. I'm okay. It's the same thing every day.
Okay.
Oh, they say same shit, different day, that kind of thing.
Okay. Anant, how long has it been that you've been in the independent scene?
I started in college basically. I was playing for a year or so before with Chronic Blues, but that's what, 97 to now, whatever that is.
Okay.
So I suck at the math, you can do the math. So that long, about some 20 something it is.
Okay. So there's a lot of music and bands that you've seen and you performed with.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of artists.
Several.
Okay. What was your early influence to music?
When I started off, I started taking guitar lessons when I was in like sixth or seventh standard. Um, at that time, my parents had an okay music collection, and I didn't have a lot of friends who had particularly good music collections. So I ended up listening to a lot of John Denver, as you do. John Denver, what is the other stuff? Like the oldies things, those kind of pop country type songs. Kenny Rogers, I suppose. So I was sort of with 3 chords and 5 chords, you can get away with all these things. And but then I was introduced to like rock first, and then I came across Eric Clapton's Unplugged album, and it would not be right to say it blew my mind immediately, but I was completely fascinated. Like just the sound, it was so beautiful. It sounded amazing. First time I'm hearing like the blues. First time I'm hearing slide. So that had a hold on me for a long time. And then from Eric Clapton, his own things, I went into, went back in time, went to the Cream stuff, went to his solo material, 24 Nights, I think it's called, one album. And so Eric Clapton was huge as an influence. I suppose many people say I still play like him, and I'm not trying to, but it bleeds in what to do.
Okay.
Eric Clapton was huge. Then I discovered a lot of blues. I discovered all the masters: B.B. King, Muddy Waters, Freddie King, all these guys. Stevie Ray Vaughan was huge. Roy Buchanan, I loved Roy Buchanan just for the amount of noise he made. It was such an attractive, you just feedback and squealing and it's like just snarling, and it was a beautiful thing. So I used to try and do a lot of that
Okay.
in my stuff. A lot less of other things. I couldn't really get into jazz so much, although now I listen to everything. But at the time, I mean, it would be fair to say Eric Clapton was the biggest one. Yeah.
What was it about blues that caught your attention so much?
Just the feeling part, I wouldn't have been able to articulate that to you at the time. But it's just the feeling thing. Something about, and Eric Clapton has a very sort of seductive and simple sounding way of playing. So kind of the simplicity of it. And I saw during that time I saw a video of Muddy Waters live. There was a song he just launched into a solo, but it wasn't a solo. It was just one note. He just did a slide like "Tong." And the expression his face had, and just that note just It knocked me out. So from then, I've just been fascinated that you can play feelings on a guitar.
That's when you picked up the guitar.
I was
About that
already
time.
playing. I was
Okay.
already playing like the 5 chord type songs. You get used to get these song books, very simplified versions of all the regular songs you hear. So you have a G C D and A minor, E minor. You cover many songs. So I used to play that kind of stuff. And then in school, I was in Rishi Valley School. Peter Isaac came over to teach physical education.
Okay.
And so he introduced me to all this blues stuff, um, even electric guitar. Just it was such an alien concept at the time.
Yeah.
Uh, through him, I went into a lot of this blues stuff, a lot of blues, and he was also listening to all sorts of like Jaw Wobbles, the guys that people still don't know about. Underrated, very underrated guys. Jaw Wobbles is a fascinating bass player. So like that, Shakti, a lot of fascinating music like this. So that was the question, right? What
Yeah,
else?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like I branched off from there. In college, there was a lot of metal going on in the sense the kids, all of us kids,
In the college,
the
say which year?
competitions.
Which year this would have been?
I joined college in 99, I think.
Okay. Yeah. I think. Yeah.
So uh, a lot of the music, because it's very attractive to college kids, the metal and the
Yeah.
hair and all that stuff. And while I couldn't get in, it wasn't really my cup of tea. I liked it. I liked the aggression. I liked the beat, the sort of frenzy of it sometimes. And you're not really paying attention to musically how sophisticated it is or anything. But while I did like it, it wasn't really my thing. But what I took from it was the distortion. I took all the distortion.
Okay.
So with Galit Gurus, we just, crank everything as far as it'll go, and that was my sound. And I still like to think that way, but you can't do that shit anymore.
So, how was your early year practice of the songs that you were listening to?
During college and all, it was just your usual. You have free time, you're playing. Any free time you get, you're playing, which is objectively speaking not a lot of time because you have to leave home at like 8 or whatever and get back home after everything is done, probably late. So not a lot of time, but we were practicing every day. Like in college, the band was practicing every day, so there was that. But the real sort of $10,000 thing happened when I moved to Madras to pursue film music. A friend of mine, Vedant, and another friend called Balu, we decided to do film music together. Um, I did it because over here it was considered uncool. Everybody was like, film music, it sucks, it sucks. I was like, that cannot be true. Like you can't have music and say it's not cool. How can anything be like bad music?
Yeah.
I didn't say all this out loud. It was just subconscious. And I thought if I have to dispel, I was also part of this thing thinking Bollywood is bad and whatever regional music is bad and all this. And out of a sort of guilty conscience, I said, okay, the only way to break it is to go into it and see. And I had this opportunity. So I went and we did music for about a year and a half or so. We did a couple of movies. I learned a lot about stuff.
Yeah.
But at that time, I was playing every day for easy 5 hours at a stretch, every day. So that got me my 10,000, I think.
Wow.
So that was the big practice time. Now there's like barely any time. You get, okay, sure, you'll do like an hour here, an hour there. But to get a solid 2 hours together, 3 hours together is really difficult. To just practice, you have other things to do.
Of course.
But to practice, it's hard now. So everybody should finish all your practicing when you're like 20.
That's true. I understand what you say.
Yeah.
When did you start write? When was your writing process? How did that begin?
Oh, writing was difficult because in college we had, like, in the sense of writing music, I was doing it fairly like in school and stuff, I'd just put down some chords here. I not put down chords. I'd like really write music. I would really put a song together, but I never felt handy enough to write lyrics. I've tried it. I've tried it a few times. I'm okay, but really, if like the way the quality of the song has to match the or vice versa, the lyrics and the song have to sort of be good together. And I never thought I could do that properly. I'm still working on it, and one day I'll get there. But Nathan used to write all the lyrics
Okay.
for the Galich Guru songs. So, in that sense, we've been writing from the very beginning. Like, even in school, when I didn't know, I still don't know what that chord is called, but I used to put these chords together and just write stuff. So, it's been an ongoing thing. Every once in a while, there have been long periods where I haven't written anything new. But for the most part, there's always something cooking here and there. So, that's been the process.
Okay. On what what is that motivates you to write a song? Is there a specific feeling that you look for, or it's just something that
It's
comes to you?
always just sound, man. It'll be a funny chord, funny sounding chord, or a riff that you accidentally come up with while you're practicing. Like when you're jamming to a track or something, and you'll come up with a weird line, and hey, what's that? Let's go further into that.
Okay.
And that's how Galich Gurus was always writing as well. All our songwriting came from jams. So we'd just jam, and there'd be some idea that stuck out to one of us, and then we'd develop that one further into a song, and then Nathan would put lyrics to it. Very rarely, I think, has it been that lyrics have come first in that band.
Okay.
So for the most part, it's the you write the music and how that feels, and the lyrics will complement that.
Okay.
For the most part. Otherwise, now I do. My wife now writes lyrics for me.
Okay.
She's a very good songwriter as well. Uh, so she sometimes gives me just lyrics that she's written. She'll have an idea. She can play like the 5 chords.
Okay.
So she can play that much guitar. And so she'll have an idea and I'll take it and I'll adapt it and change it if I need to. So it works both ways. So I've given her music, she writes lyrics. I'm sorry, I knocked the mic.
That's okay.
I've given her music that she will write to, and she's given me lyrics that I will write to as well. So
Okay.
it works every which way.
Do you have some sort of procedure where you're like, okay, this song is done, but do you compare your songs with the other artists or the artists that you've heard before that who have influenced you, and then take a call on whether it is good or not?
I mean, honestly, it takes so much just to get it to a place where it's like tolerable to you. It's just you can't be bothered with thinking about how does it compare to Eric Clapton. It's like you don't. I've never thought of it. I also went to Rishi Valley where they discourage competition. So inherently, I don't think of competition. It's not like a problem or anything. It doesn't occur to me to
Got it.
compete with anybody or anything, which is a problem sometimes in this modern world. But it's okay. You can live without competition. What is there? There's place for everyone. Is what I think.
Okay. Your early years when you were listening to these bands, music was shared by your friends, your
Yeah,
family.
cassettes. Everything was cassettes those days before the CDs came out. I think it got to a point where I was always carrying a blank CD tape, couple of blank tapes, and if I in somebody's house, I would find music and immediately copy.
Yeah.
And so I've done a lot of that. I go to my friend's house in Bombay. Her dad had a superb music collection. I would just sit up all night, just write CD after CD of this stuff. My friend Vedant had a huge collection with him also, just copies. So I have like CD books of this stuff still. So that was the main thing. That was how we got music those days. Many people talk about Radio Ceylon and all. I think that was before my time.
I think OC was talking about Radio Salon.
He's
Yeah.
slightly older, so it figures. I've never heard Radio Ceylon, and anything on radio was just, I don't know, like classical stuff. I don't even remember what was on radio that time. But sharing was this only, copy music. And if you wanted to show somebody music, you copied music and you gave them a cassette. Good old analog.
Do you listen to music now? The new blues or jazz artists or
I try to, but there's so much stuff. It's very hard to filter.
Hmm.
One, I'd like to know like who's like the what do you call it? Who's the cream of the crop or whatever. But there's no way to know now. Everyone is so talented.
Hmm.
Like earlier, it was like if you play in this festival, you're good.
Yes.
But now it's just everyone's talented. Everyone's got a voice. They're all on Spotify and whatnot.
Hmm.
So now it's just a question of quality, which is great, but also doesn't help because there's so many.
Correct.
And so I do try, and I discover one or two a year, maybe if I'm lucky. But I try to keep up.
Okay.
It's pretty hard.
Yes. Um, you've been performing for, I think, a long time,
Yeah.
and you've seen different music, different kind of music pass by over the years. How would you say the scene was back then and now? What is the difference that you feel?
There was, I want to say that it was more, there was more original stuff going on, but that's simply not true. I think it's roughly the same percentage of people doing original music to covers is it's pretty much the same, I think. It's just now the numbers are more, so it feels like maybe there's more both original and covers. But I think roughly percentage wise, it would be the same sort of ratio.
Do you feel people were better listeners back then with whatever music you played?
I don't think so. I really don't think so. No, I can't say that's true. Look, you had very good listeners then, you have very good listeners now. There's no, I don't, why, do you feel there's a difference?
No,
Because I don't,
I'm trying to understand because one of the reasons I'm asking you this is I feel that in at least I came to Bangalore in 2012 2013, and then until 16 17 we did see a lot of bands. At least I
that period was
yes,
pretty,
a lot of bands playing
correct.
originals and a lot of venues that were curating original artists,
Sure.
and that has reduced a lot now. And at maybe post COVID times would have been the reason as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure. And B flat and all those places shutting down
yeah.
doesn't help at all.
Yes, and I think Aarti was still curating somehow with associating with clubs,
Yeah, she
and she was
tried
still
that for
doing
some
that.
time.
Yeah.
I think she's not here right now, but she was trying that.
Mm.
But even in clubs, you don't play original music. They strictly want covers. They don't even want to hear anything of yours. So she's just trying to keep the company alive or whatever. But I mean, she did a lot for us. The Take Five guys, Humming
Yes.
Tree.
Yes.
So you're right. Maybe in a sense there was a lot more original stuff going on then, but also maybe just because it was being heard. I think there is still original music now. It's just there's no place to play it.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear it, which is unfortunate. But I mean, people are still trying to put their music out, which is great. And if you get picked up for a show, you get picked up for a show. It's so. I mean, in a sense, things are still kind of how they've always been. So, not. I don't think people are listening particularly. There is certainly a lot more music available.
Definitely.
So I think in like online and stuff. So I think in that sense, like we had to go to a cassette shop and hunt through cassettes, and we don't know who, like Grateful Dead is, but fine, let's give them a shot. None of that anymore. Now it's everything is just there online for free.
Yeah, you can just
So
pinpoint and listen.
in that sense, maybe they're marginally more, not marginally, quite a bit better educated in terms of the kind of music, the variety of music out there. I don't see it making that much of a difference. In, if anything, they're more discerning now that they have more information available. So I'm not seeing a huge difference.
Okay. Were you someone who is particular about, okay, this was analog style and I like this vibe, and now it's all on computer? Does that?
No, man. I mean, people. I know, and I know it's a big topic for many people, and it's a big deal that things have to be analog and stuff. While I agree, I think it does sound better. Like there is something about vinyl, there's something about cassettes, no doubt about it. But I mean, we used to listen to cassettes on like a shitty Walkman with crap headphones, and I'm not sure. I mean, if you're particular about that kind of stuff, get better headphones, and all that is fine. But it didn't change your experience, right? You're listening to Layla. It doesn't matter if it's like one of those Dabba cassette players, or if it's digital online format now. For the most part, you're getting what the message of the song is. And I think that's some people are very picky. They want their amps and their hi-fis and all this, which is fine, good for you. But one, I can't afford that shit. And two, it doesn't make like a huge difference to me. I'm hearing the difference, but it's not life changing. It's fine. I can get away with digital for some time. The whole point of digital was to make sound better, right? So I'm not. I Many people disagree that MP3 is bad. They think MP3 made things better. Honestly, I can't tell the difference sometimes. So it's. I'm not a huge analog guy. No, I can tell a guitar signal when that becomes digital and analog. That's a much bigger difference on your fingers. Also, it definitely feels different and all. That is, I'm more concerned about that for sure. But listening to music, I'm okay.
Okay. What is your electric guitar setup like? Since you are somebody who loves sound on stage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I hate silent stages. My rig right now, I used to play from college. Because the thing to do at that time was nobody believed in analog gear. Very few people rather. And I had just come from Peter Isaac's band, which was completely analog, all valve amps and barely any pedals, but like the highest quality valve amps. And straight into the college scene where everyone was on processors. And so from then, I started with a GFX 8, which is a Zoom, I think. And then many years later, upgraded to a Line 6, what are they called? Pod X3 Live, which I still have it. I still use it once in a while. But I'm so bad with this stuff. There's so many knobs, so many menus, so many parameters.
You're somebody who's like plug and play.
I love that. I love that more than anything. If you can't plug your guitar into an amp and crank it and make it sound okay, I lose patience after that.
Okay.
So for a while, after the Line 6 came into my life and I used it for a few years, even with Galish Gurus who, some effects would not be misplaced, I just decided to screw it and that we'd get nice amps. So I just plug into the amp, crank it, use my volume knob for boosts, and that was it. And I had such a good time with that. But now, seeing as to how even getting an amp on stage is such a problem now, I got myself a Friedman IRX, which is a preamp pedal. And it's not a drive pedal, it's a preamp pedal. Dave Friedman is very clear about this. So what I can do with that is I can go direct out to the board, or I can go into the FX return on stage, or just like have one of those monitors and plug into that. So I have many options. So essentially my entire rig is that Friedman thing. I have a couple of drive pedals or a couple of boost pedals just for fun. It's not like I'm using them cleverly. And my guitar, and that's it.
Okay.
And that's the whole shebang.
Yes. And do you have like a favorite? I mean, like you like acoustic or electric, or it's again based on
Oh no, I love acoustic and I love electric. They're completely different things. There's no comparison. So no, I'm not partial at all. I started with acoustic and I still love a good acoustic. But the noise an electric can make is just another world of things. So I love that as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Not partial.
All right. Okay. Cool. Let's talk about your earlier band, By Two Blues.
Oh yeah.
The formation and everything.
Somewhere along the way, I was in a band called Parachute 16 for some time.
Parachute 16.
XVI, not 16. XVI. There's still some music on SoundCloud if you search.
Okay.
Which was a wonderful thing for me. But that broke up after maybe 2 years or something. And for a while, I was in Galish Gurus all the time. but I had nothing else going on. And it was some holiday, maybe Christmas or something. Vasudev Prabhu called me and said we should do something together. Just you on acoustic, me on harmonica. I was like, okay, that sounds like let's. I'm not doing anything else. So we got together and immediately we knew this was going to work. So for about a year, maybe longer, it was just the two of us. He'd play harmonica and sing a little bit. I would sing and play guitar. And we did that for some time. And I think after a while, he said, I can't remember how Joe Anthony got into the picture. I think Dave just said we could use more noise or something to that effect. And before we knew it, Joe Anthony was in the picture playing cajon. And we went that way for a while. We were meeting regularly for practice, and I thought we were doing pretty okay. That's when I wrote some lyrics of my own.
For By Two Blues?
Yeah,
Okay.
not fond of them,
Okay.
but kind of rudimentary and sort of basic rhyming structures. Not like by then I was just I have to do it because nobody else is there. So I wrote a few. We had quite a few own comps. Some other people wrote for us. They would write for us.
Okay.
So we did okay for some time. I thought we played at OO Heaven,
Yeah,
Double
Double
O
O Heaven.
Heaven, which you did sound for, that was a great show.
Yeah, that space was everything,
It
right?
was also treated so well,
It was treated
and it was just perfect for for our kind of thing without a bass.
Yeah.
It still sounded so full.
correct.
So on principle, we said we won't get. We did play with a few basses. Kaushik has played with us. Shalini has played with us for one gig. Like we did that, but I think we just decided to stick with no bass. So we did okay, and then kind of drifted apart. I wouldn't be able to tell you why. I know that Joe carried on, and he's now in Hyderabad. So in any case, it wouldn't have lasted. But it was before he left after a while to go to Hyderabad. So I wouldn't be able to tell you. I think it's just sort of drifted apart, or I can't tell you. Maybe we should ask one of the boys. So that was a fun little detour.
Yeah. Do you guys have your songs released that were composed for By Two
No,
Blues?
we have anything? No, we didn't manage to release anything. We did towards right at the very end. We sort of split while we were recording. So we were recording some things, and there are some tracks somewhere. I think Vedant has on his computer because I was trying to mix there. Or maybe I have it. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But we tried to record, but it didn't sort of finish, and so
Okay.
we couldn't manage. We have a few live recordings, but like I've been wanting to sit and tinker with them, but then now the band is not there. It doesn't make sense. You release this and they say, live show, live show. There's like, sorry, nothing.
But do you think for fans, like for example, I'm very curious to know what were the songs about, and I would be really
It
happy.
was about all sorts of things.
Yeah.
The ones I would write about, I wrote one about, what are these? One about, I hated working.
Okay.
And so I wrote a song about like how I hate working. Not how, it was supposed to be how I hated working, but it ended up being how my wife thought I wasn't working when I was actually working. This is what I mean. It was so rudimentary. There was another one called Superstar in My Car where
I think Superstar. I think you guys have played that song.
we played
yeah.
at Double O Heaven. We played all of them.
Yeah.
Like we played like some 40 songs that day.
Yeah.
Superstar in My Car was about my at the time wife's friend who used to come with us, and it's one of those who do you think you are kind of things. You think you're a superstar, and he trashed my car once. Like it's that kind of thing. Just nothing. No particularly overarching set of ideas or themes. We just went with what something old wine, new bottle was another one. There was no particular like thing that we wrote around.
I would like to ask you about pre-COVID and post-COVID. How
Gosh.
was that?
It was fucking traumatic for me, man. Before COVID, I was a performing musician. I had many things going on. I had already left the Girlish Gurus at the time. for quite a few years. But I had a lot of covers things in B flat. I was always playing somewhere or the other. Practically every week I'd be playing somewhere. A lot of covers, but a lot of other stuff as well. So I thought I could just do this for the rest of my life. What is it? You play every week, you get some money, you pay your rent, and you're good. And then COVID happened, and there was nothing for like 2 years. In the middle, some Aarti organized a couple of shows, but basically nothing for 2 years. And it came down to what is my life worth if I'm not a musician? Like, what the fuck am I doing in this world if I can't play music and I can't sing? A lot of that kind of crisis, sudden realization that you don't have any own material recorded, or I mean, I had enough of a working knowledge of how software works that I could have just recorded at home. People had been talking to me about Reaper for years. It's free software. You just have to. It's not free, guys. It costs some money, but you can use it for some time. Um, I could have done that. A lot of time went like just wallowing in this self pity. Oh no, what have I done with myself? Um, but of course, the good thing is, after that wallowing got over, I started doing stuff. I started writing stuff. I started just writing my own songs and recording them for once. After that, yeah, I still feel the bite of that sort of crisis on my ass. It's sort of, I don't think it's ever really gone away. But you deal with what the hell. I don't want to come off as a whiner. It's fine. You get on with life. It's not like I was the only one the pandemic happened to. So it helped in the sense that it sort of get your act together, kind of a wake up call. And since then, I've been just writing a lot more songs. In 2 years, I have like 15, 20 songs, like new songs ready to go. So all that, it helped. And it was very hard on me in the beginning. And also, I like stopped drinking every day, which was a very big thing for me. At the time, I was drinking a lot, and it helped. I didn't have any withdrawals or anything. It wasn't that kind of situation. But it's just the idea of like, why the fuck should you drink every day? It's fine. It's like a new idea. Wow, you don't need to drink every day. So that was a big revelation kind of thing. It wasn't a revelation, it's just common sense. But at least common sense came back into my life, I guess, a little bit. So that helped. Yeah, uh, I would call it a good time. I mean, I'm very sorry for all the people who suffered, but in the sense, personally, I think it helped.
Okay.
Everyone has to grow up at some point.
You collaborate with many artists. Can you name few that you really enjoy playing with?
Collaboration, by collaboration, you mean just people I have called to play with?
Yeah. Sometimes
with
I
me.
think people do call you to play
Yeah,
some stuff.
not that often, but sure, it does happen. Uh, there was a point where I was using Mad Orange Fireworks as my backup band.
Okay.
That was super because the band is already together and tight,
Yeah.
and my guitar playing would add a different sort of sound to the whole thing. And I could just play rhythm, which I'm more better at than I am playing solos. So Mikey would take a lot of the solos, and I would play rhythm. And because my rhythm is strong, the band sounds a certain different kind of energy from when he plays rhythm. So that was a very good sort of collaboration, I thought.
Okay.
Other than that, everybody I play with is fun, man. I mean, I played with Prabhat once. I don't know if you know Prabhat. Prabhat Gopal, I think his name is, the guitar player. So he was fun, just old schooly kind of one pedal, just janky ass sound. This is very lovely. He was nice. Kaushik, I always play with as much as I can. Kaushik on bass. Melvin was always fun, is always fun. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking for more drummers. If there are drummers out there, come to me, baby. I'm looking for drummers all the time.
Okay.
So, uh, otherwise, I mean, Thermal called me once at some gig somewhere to play like some one song. Me and who was it? I don't even remember. It was so long back. But I mean, it's Thermal and a quarter. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
Fantastic band. So,
Crazy, man. And they have so many good songs,
man,
one
I'm
after
telling
the other.
you, those guys, I'm not a fan of their music, but they are such stellar musicians. Bruce was talking about negative harmony at one point. I still don't know what that is. But he's always been that guy. He also went to Christ. So I think he taught for a couple of years after he left, which coincided with us being there.
Hmm.
He's that guy, in college, you don't know your ass from your face. You got this big ass processor. It says compressor, chorus, and says all these things. And Bruce will be like, just put some more compressor on that. What the fuck is compression? You try to turn it up. And then years later, he will meet him somewhere and he'll be like, yo, using the same cable, no, to set your tone. It's like, fuck, what the fuck? One more thing. So he's always been like, he just knows everything. So he's amazing. Leslie now plays for them. He's superb. Tony Das, my God, what a guy.
Yeah.
And Rajiv, such a brilliant drummer. So I've always admired them. Such amazing stuff. Like every few years, I'll be like, it's been a while. I haven't seen them play, and I'll go watch them again. So they've always been an inspiration. Bruce, especially, fantastic stuff.
Yeah. Let's talk about the new band that's you've come up with.
The Rubber Biscuit Project by Anant Menon. Yeah, so that was. It's just the writing project that my wife and I have going on. She writes the lyrics, some of the melodies. Sometimes I write the rest of it, and we did a show recently at Raft, which Melvin played for. I'm trying to remember how many songs. I think it was 17 songs, 17 new songs, something like that. And we did a few covers just to pass time. So that's it. It's just the new material that I'm coming up with, solo project. It's been a long time since I wrote just for myself as like Anant Menon as a thing. So it was difficult to get it off the ground, but now we have some momentum going. And I'll be recording soon. Recording
Great.
at least, an album's worth. So out of 17, maybe 10 songs, something like that. And Sylvester is going to help me produce it.
Amazing.
So Sylvester will be on it with me. It'll start soon. I mean, I'm going to start sending him demos and stuff. He's also very busy. So I'm going to start sending him some demos and we're going to get on it. We have to work out how to fund it and stuff like that. But it's happening. We'll have a recording out at some point very soon.
So, do you have any shows upcoming?
We're going to. Now it's too late to set up for this year. So we want to start maybe a show in Jan and Feb. I haven't called anybody yet. I should be calling people. The thing is, there's only fandom which can hold more than like 150, 200 people.
Yeah.
And everywhere else is small. It's very enjoyable and all, but it's small. Like you're not going to get a lot of people there. So it's a trade-off between like how many people you want and
Correct.
playing your music. So I'm sure I think in Jan maybe we'll try and set up something.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Okay. So you told me that there are about 17, 18 songs that you have right now.
There are more actually, but
Okay.
I haven't finished them.
Can you pick out any one song and talk about it in terms of what it is about, why you wrote it?
Well, there are several. So one was written by a friend of ours called Shalini Pillai. She wrote the lyrics, and I told her the song was about ambition and how I've always had a sort of uneasy equation with the idea of ambition. Just because, as kids also, just in Indian culture, they sort of frown upon this, oh, he's so ambitious, it's supposed to be like a bad thing. I don't know where you're from, if it's like that. I feel like that's what I've been hearing all my life. So this weird sort of equation of if you want to get somewhere, you have to be ambitious, but if you're ambitious, you're a bad person. It's a sort of a strange contradiction. And so I also had written some lyrics about this stuff. But again, like I say, I'm not like there's a certain fluidity that you have to have, which just comes with practice, nothing else, and which simply wasn't there in that. And so she was looking to write also some lyrics. So I asked Shalini to This is the sort of vague idea. You can take it anywhere you want. You don't have to. You can stick to the topic, whatever you like. And she kind of stuck to the topic, and so that's one song about ambition. It's like a pretty much a blues rocky kind of song. It's not an anthem or anything, but it's like a blues rock sort of ditty.
Okay.
Then we have an EP out already, but it's not called the Rubber Biscuit Project by Anand Panand. It's just called by Rubber Biscuit.
Okay.
It's on all the platforms.
Okay.
So we did an EP just as a tester. That one I played almost everything in, except the drums we got somebody else to play. But I played bass, guitar, everything, sang everything. That one's called Newly Strange Familiar is another song. Oh no, it is called Newly Strange Old Familiar, but that song is not on the album. That's going to come on the next album.
Okay.
We thought we'd do a thing. So we'll call this album Newly Strange Old Familiar. For the next album, we'll write a song called Newly Strange Old Familiar. Call it something and put that one as a song title in the next album. Just dumb idea. Why not?
Okay.
So Newly Strange Old Familiar by Rubber Biscuit.
Okay.
That EP is out. So those songs were nice as well. Also, Rebecca, my wife, has a uncanny knack of when she's writing lyrics, she just somehow it's like I'm talking. She's just pulled ideas out of my head without me telling her anything.
Okay.
And written about them. Fantastic. So it's an amazing collaboration that way.
Okay. Really looking forward to the.
Oh yeah. No one's looking forward to it more than me.
Absolutely. Your earlier influences that we spoke about, is there any album that you feel this is just for you, right? An album or a song that you feel is just perfect, everything about it is perfect?
Oh, there are a few actually. I mean, in no particular order. There's one, Peter Frampton has a Frampton Comes Alive. And just the way the songs are laid out, and that's one of my favorite albums. Grateful Dead has an album called Blues for Allah. I love that album. Traffic has an album called Low Spark of High Heeled Boys.
Wow.
That I can listen to anytime, anywhere, as many times as possible, no problem. The thing is, we had in school, before I had already started playing guitar, but before I was into it or whatever, we had this was a boarding school. So we had to wake up at this junior school was 6, I suppose. Wake up at 5:30, go for PT at 6. And one of the house parents, we call them, this teachers in charge of the house, he used to wake us up by playing different music, not just one thing, but he'd play Jethro Tull, Traffic, Kumar Gandharv, some Jasraj, Kishori Amonkar. He just played. There was nothing, no, you're not supposed to do anything with it. He just played, and you have to wake up, brush your teeth, do your dump, and go to PT. But in the process, what happened was this stuff just got ingrained in my head. So I've internalized all these albums and all these songs. So Kumar Gandharv was a huge thing for me. Traffic, that particular album was actually where I heard it was there. Aqualung, I heard he used to play the album Aqualung. So those, I think one of the reasons it's in my head so much and I call them perfect is because of that. It's just like I keep telling people, if you want to really get into like a new kind of music or even just a new band or something, just play it every day and don't listen to it. Play it every day in the corner and don't listen to it. And you'll find within a week or two or something, it's just in your head. And then next time you hear it, you start enjoying it. It's like magic. It's a weird process.
Yes.
So that was one of the reasons Traffic is on that list. I really like Eric Clapton's Unplugged album.
Yeah. I think it just
It's
turned the
just
world around for me.
It's everything. I mean, I can talk about it forever.
Yeah, I think everything about that album is good.
Yeah.
Production, even the change of sound
Yeah, and
completely.
the way it's laid out, he starts solo with just two of them and then adds on more and more people. And by the end of it, it's the full band rollicking away. Just everything. I mean, it sounds incredible. And so, have you heard the unmastered versions on
No, I
YouTube?
haven't.
There
I
are all
haven't.
these. It's just a video recording,
Okay.
and they haven't like. It's not the final takes,
Got
and
it.
they haven't mixed the songs properly. It sounds bizarre. It sounds so bad, but it's just it's educational. If you
Yeah.
just watch that, many restarts and stuff like that. It's very cool. So that album was like a holy grail for me.
Okay.
That's where I got into slide also. So
Okay.
yeah.
You also play the slide?
I mean, you know, what is a slide player? As long as you don't touch other strings, there's no buzz and you're on the note. What else?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I got into slide because of that. I'm not a slide player per se, but I do enjoy playing slide, and I've learned like some 5 songs, which I can do pretty well.
Okay.
So I'm not a slide player, but I do play a little bit. Like I'm not a harmonica player, but I can play some harmonica. It's okay.
Okay. Do you have any message for the younger generation who's getting into music?
Uh, sure. Don't do things the way you see other people doing them. If you think, I don't know, like, okay, let's take some examples just because they're available. Say, I want to be like Bruce Lee Money. Don't say I want to be like Bruce Lee Money. Say you want to be like yourself. Take all the ideas. He's done many things in spectacularly good fashion. Take ideas, take inspiration, sure. But don't want to be like Bruce Lee Money or don't want to be like Vishal Dadlani. Sure, just they're very successful and they're very talented and all this stuff, but so are you in your own way. You have your own things to offer. Find those things and expand on them. That will be one very big piece of advice. And the only other thing I say is that when you play or sing, do it like it's the last chance you're ever going to get.
So, Anand, we have few questions.
Attack the Savage.
Yeah. And you just got to answer that. It's not really a rapid fire. You can take it.
Good,
Okay.
because I'm not good at rapid fire.
Okay. A show that changed your life. It can be an international act, an independent act.
Oh, like a performance.
Yeah, a performance. It can be either you watching a show or watching a band, or probably you playing that particular show.
Oh god, there's actually a few. I'm trying to. There's one that's at the back of my head. I'm not able to catch it. Okay, never mind. Maybe it'll come back. I did a show once with Peter Isaac in Goa. No, Gokarna. In Gokarna, we played a show, and that. In fact, with Peter, I've done like maybe 3 of those. There's this concept in, I think it's in blues, where they say hitting the groove,
Okay.
where when the band is so tight that it's not just a tight band, it's something else. It becomes something else on top of that. And that's the aim. But I've never heard other musicians talk about it in a sense of it's something to do in the band. And Peter used to talk about it all the time. And it was the aim. The aim was to get that state of perfection. It's not perfection, but to that effect. So with that band, we've seen it a few times.
Okay.
It's not just once or twice. Like with Galish Gurus, it happened a few times. We played for like 16 years or something. It happened a few times. In Chronic Blues, I played much less, but it happened a few times there as well. With By Two Blues, it used to happen a few times. It's Parachute 16, it happened all the time.
Yeah.
So that because of that that hitting the groove situation, a few of those stand out. Watching, man, there are so many. I'm just trying to pick one that is like sort of cooler to talk about. Like when Thermal and a Quarter is cooking on stage, there's really no better thing to watch, to hear, to experience. So I've seen a couple of Thermal shows that was good, and when they're good, they're beyond. They're just something else. So some of those are great. I used to really enjoy these metal guys back in the day. Baversi, Cryptos. Cryptos less. I didn't watch so much Cryptos. We used to compete a lot in the college circuit. But Baversi was such a good band. They had that thing going, that magic. I'm talking about all Indian stuff. I'm trying to remember
Yes.
international, like, oh, I know what it was. It was the Rolling Stones show in Bangalore.
Okay.
It was amazing because my friend and I got in. We didn't get in late or anything, but we got in like after the main bulk of the crowd had gone in. And anyway, I don't like standing in the middle of crowd. I'm a bit weird about crowds. So we went right to the end, all the way to the end. There was like a whatever this sheeting that they had for walls, metal sheeting. So we were right to the end. We were smoking and drinking. I think I don't remember, and all the way to the end. And the band was okay. They were in the sense. I mean, they were fantastic, but they weren't. They had some technical issues. It wasn't like the best sounding gig per se. But Mick Jagger has something going on where he just speaks to you regardless of where you are in the audience. And I remember thinking, this guy is talking to me. I'm standing right at the end. I'm literally the last person in the whole audience. And he's making me rock. It was insane. It was such a crazy experience. I never knew that was a thing. I never knew
Okay.
you could have, like a singer could have that kind of a connect. We're talking about like 150, 200 meters distance. He can't even see me. It's not like he's looking at me. But it felt like he was talking to me. It's insane. That was very special.
Okay.
I mean, there are others. I'll just keep talking. Don't want.
Cool. A band that you look forward to perform with or be a part of.
I wish I could play with Indian Ocean or Soulmate. Sure, for sure, Soulmate. Other than that, you mean Indian only, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, other than that, not so many. I mean, I like what we do. I like what Rubber Biscuit does.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, Soulmate and Indian Ocean would be sweet gigs.
Okay.
I would really enjoy those.
How many guitars do you have?
Yeah, okay. So there's one Strat, one black Strat, which is the one I use for everything. I have a Tulsi guitar, which is all the Tulsi and the Epiphone SG Junior are in bad condition. So once those pickups get repaired, I will have 3 electric guitars.
Okay.
And I have a couple of acoustics. The acoustics are not up to par yet. So they're just guitars like my wife used to have one, so that's at the house. Somebody just gave me one, so that's in the house. They're not great guitars. They get the job done. For like live shows, you put a good pickup on it, you're okay. So I have those 2 or 3 acoustic. Vedant's left one acoustic guitar in my house, which is a good guitar, but it has many problems. So like 3 acoustic, I guess.
Okay.
3 acoustics, but I'm going to get the one acoustic of my life at some point.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, some ukuleles and some flutes and things. Just
Do you play the
random.
flute?
Not at all.
Okay.
When I was in school, my dad just used to keep these flutes at home. He doesn't play much either.
Okay.
But he used to always have flutes at home for some reason. So I took one to Rishi Valley. And one day I was on the hill and there was a shepherd, I think he was a goat herd. He was there and he saw me holding a flute and he said, "Can I see that?" And he played one tune. I can still play that tune till today, but that's the only thing I know. Just that's just like 2 lines of it. That's it. I can do that much flute.
Okay. Cool. Your favorite musician? This can be indie or international.
Oh God, that's tough. Favorite one guy. Boil them all down to one. I'm trying to see which direction to go. There are so many. I mean, the classical guys are almost universally just awesome. Eric Clapton, of course. Stevie Ray Vaughan blows my mind every time I hear him. I love Albert King. I love Albert Collins. Fact, there's no one thing, man. There's no favorite like that.
Okay.
Kumar Gandharv is massive in my head. I love his son stuff. Mukul Shivputra. He also has some fantastic things. He's very difficult to work with apparently, but I mean, the stuff I've heard is just, I love it. So I mean, I can just keep going on. These are just
Okay.
people I listen to. It's awesome.
Okay, cool. So what does the future look like from here?
Man, I was watching a video the other day where I always thought, the easier thing would be on your wallet is to just do EPs, 4 songs. It'll cost less than a full album and so on. Then I was watching a video where I I want to say it was Joe Bonamassa, but I'm not sure who it was, who said, the old way of doing it is still the current way of doing it, which is you write an album, you tour the album, you come back home, you write another album, and you tour the album. This is what musicians do. So the aim is to just do that. Of course, I'd like to do some films if they come my way, or any other those kind of. I do a lot of theater music also. In my wife is a theater person, so I do a lot of that. But other than that, what is your job? Your job is to make music and entertain people. So the plan is to make music and entertain people.
Okay.
That's it.
Since you spoke about theater music, can you talk a little more on that?
I've always liked it. It's from school. I've been in plays, not really done music for plays as such, but I've been in plays. I used to do some amount of acting, some backstage stuff. I just very fascinating. As a medium, it's just a very fascinating thing. Was very fascinating, still is. There was one play. There was one teacher who organized a play where he put all his. They were very young. My brother was in it. He was very young. And that was when my mind was just open to this possibility of how you can use music in theater. It was a very simple thing. He was just the auditorium was like this, and he'd made a pathway, and the scene was, I think, one kid had to go from here to there. It was like building an intensity, some kind of emotion. I don't remember the exact situation. But the idea was the kid would walk from here, get onto stage, and there was something he would do there, and it was like a thing. And I highlighted that whole thing by just starting drums slowly, just one bass drum, hitting it slowly, and then like building, and at the end it was this crescendo, and it just blew my mind because I'd never seen that kind of thing before. So from then I've been very interested in the potential of what you can do, and now with technology you can do so much stuff. So I've always been interested, and so with my wife she makes theater a lot. So we're involved with. She works at Jagriti Theatre, and we stay right there. So I think most of their own productions, I do music for.
Okay.
And if anybody else wants to give me work, please. So yeah, I'm just very interested in theatre music.
Okay, cool. All right, awesome. So, Anand, thank you so much for
My pleasure. Thank you guys.
coming here.
Thank you very much. There are people behind this you don't see. What's your name? Albert and Sujit.
Yes.
Thank you guys. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Yes. And that was the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed watching the video. So hit the like button, share, subscribe, and press the bell icon. We will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.